Hi, and welcome to Nursing 505, Pathophysiology for Advanced Nursing Practice. My name is Professor Jessica Stone Lanfranchi, and I will be co-teaching this class with Professor Alana Kavanaugh. If you have any questions or you need to reach out to me, please feel free to email me. My email is jstone-lanfranchi@goodwin.edu. And I'm happy to meet with any of you via Google Meet. We can schedule a time if you need any help or any guidance throughout this course. Okay, I just wanted to do a short intro. The lectures have already been pre-recorded from the previous class from last semester, and they're excellent presentations. But I just wanted to let you know that throughout the course, I will be adding my own presentations or anything else added that I think would be beneficial to help this learning process. Pathophysiology in advanced practice is extremely tedious at times. It's a lot of material to learn, but I'm really hopeful and I'm really honored that I will help you guide through this process of learning in terms of directing you and helping you really pinpoint and focus your knowledge and your retention of knowledge so that you can apply this both in your clinical practice as you go through clinicals, as well as in your ability to answer your critical thinking questions when you go to sit for your boards. Both your patho class and your FNP 1 and 2 primary care classes are very, very strong foundational classes and the meat and potatoes for your knowledge base in order to sit for your boards. So just as I am encouraging my primary care class, I would also like to encourage you to take your notes and your outlines of this particular class text and really keep it organized by body system so that you can use these notes when you need to refer back for reference when you're studying for your boards. The class is set up based around your textbook, which is hopefully you guys all have. And I'll get into it. It's your advanced physiology and pathophysiology text. I'll show it to you in the next slide. Right here it is. It's a great book. It's very well laid out. It's super organized. And, you know, they do a great job of breaking things down from the physiology standpoint, as well as connecting it to actual clinical practice. So make sure you look and utilize your textbook and read those side notes that they have in there to help guide you. Within this course, I want to just focus in on your syllabus, which this is all listed very clearly in your syllabus. That is posted at this point in Canvas. So I'm not going to, read the syllabus to you page by page. I'm sure you can do that on your own. But the one thing I did want to focus in on is, what the expectation is for you as a student within this class. Knowledge of your normal physiological processes is a basis for understanding adaptive and pathological changes in human body systems. Is important for you to start to grasp as an outcome. You're going to explore risk factors, including genetics and socioeconomic conditions for pathological conditions. You're going to analyze and articulate the etiology, pathogenesis, and developmental and environmental influences and clinical manifestations of major disease states. Super important. That's one of your biggest outcomes that I would focus on for sure. Discuss current research in pathophysiology and use clinical diagnostic reasoning to diagnose disorders. You're going to be describing and choosing appropriate diagnostic and or other evaluative studies as they relate to your pathophysiological processes. And you're going to explain pathophysiological concepts of disease for patients, families, and communities using plain language. So the idea is you want to understand these concepts and then be able to break it down into very simple terminology so that you can actually explain these concepts to your patients based on their own disease and care plans that they're going to be having to learn and, utilize within their lives. So this is the course syllabus for week 1. This is just the breakdown for week 1. Again, it's already listed in Canvas, so please print it and plan your life accordingly. There is a lot of reading involved in this course, and a lot of what you're learning is, especially because it's an online course, as Goodwin is, you're going to end up finding in graduate school, whether you're online or on campus, that a lot of your knowledge and ability to understand this stuff is based on your own ability to read and comprehend your text. So please make sure you block out big blocks of time within your week to keep up with the readings and keep up with the assignments. because the readings are the foundation for your ability to grasp this content. Okay, we can't read for you. The lectures are obviously based around the readings, but they're not reading it to you. So you're going to need to, you're responsible for reading the text on your own, and then using the PowerPoints as a guide to pinpoint what you really need to focus on for your practice. So this week we're focusing on the foundational concepts of clinical practice and chapter 1 and 2, chemical and biochemical foundations. And just in terms of my introduction today, like I had said, the lectures have already been pre-recorded, and I will add to them as I feel necessary as this weeks go on. Again, this is your textbook. Hopefully you guys have it by now. If you don't, I do believe the first chapter is available on Amazon, so you can start looking through it until you do get your book. Things that this text offer that I would definitely encourage you to use as you're reading your chapters as a review for your retention of knowledge is thought questions. They are listed at the, throughout the chapters. For instance, in chapter 1, or actually it's, I believe chapter 2, when it gets into the key elements that make up the body, these are the thought questions that are listed just in the second chapter at the very beginning. Look at these questions as you're reading and utilize them to help guide your knowledge that you're retaining as you're reading your chapters. They're super helpful. And I will be posting the answers to these thought questions in the following class so that you will have, make sure that you're actually answering them correctly. Okay. And I just wanted to point out, like in the chapter 1, it really outlines how they break down the book. And I actually appreciated the outline very much because it will help you focus outlining for each chapter as you read along. So I would really encourage you to use chapter 1 as a baseline for your outline for each chapter as you read the book. I really like how they broke down what they're focusing on in each chapter, and use that as your outline for your notes as you go along. One of the things I wanted to point out with you and how your text is broken down is they do this sequence of approach to the disease mechanism. So the way they lay out each chapter, like this is an example of when they talk about respiratory in the lung. They talk about the physiology and patho of the lung. They go over, they do an overview of the physiology of the lung structure and the function. Then they talk about, diseases that could be affected within the lung structure and function, which would be, for example, cystic fibrosis and pleural effusion. Then they talk about the compliance of the lung and chest wall and what would be, a disease that does not comply with the lung and chest wall, which would be emphysema and pulmonary fibrosis. Then they get into airway resistance within the lung. And what are those disease processes? Asthma and COPD. So as you can see, the way they break it down, it's very much organized based on the actual structural deficits of the disease of the body mechanism or disease mechanism. All right, so just keep that in mind. That's how your book is broken down. So it'll actually help with your note-taking, outlining, and your knowledge retention. Okay, so, I just wanted to point out the periodic table of elements. They really get into that in chapter 2. In terms of the key points, I just want to make sure you're aware of that and, how to look at this particular table of elements, which chapter 2 gets into. Chapter 2 really focuses on the chemical and biochemical foundations of life. First, it starts with a review of chemical foundations, including the atomic structure and the periodic table of elements is listed here. I just wanted to point out that the focus is placed on the most common elements in the body and how the electron shell filling impacts their chemical reactivity. Keep in mind the formation and role of ions, especially acids and bases within the body, is described very much in this chapter. It talks about the importance of electron sharing, and the formation of polar and non-polar covalent bonds is very much presented. They talk about the application of polar and non-polar bonds and molecular structures to the properties of the biomolecules, along with the description of their significance to the human physiology. They also get into the role of carbon as the foundational atom of life. And they talk about 4 specific classes of molecules. Their structure and some of their body functions are discussed in greater detail, including your carbohydrates, your lipids, your amino acids, proteins, and nucleotides. Now, I don't want to repeat already what's in the upcoming lectures that have already been pre-recorded. I just wanted to kind of summarize the objectives of what you should be focusing on in terms of those lectures, which include your chemical foundations of life, chemical patterns of physiology and patho, organic chemistry foundations of patho, your carbohydrates, your lipids, your amino acids and proteins, and nucleotides and nucleic acids. All right, just focus on those key points. And then, you know, a lot of this chapter is basically just foundational review and information from your undergraduate science prerequisite courses. However, you know, they do get into the ions and biomolecules as building blocks of both physiology and pathophysiologic processes. So I want you to make sure that this vocabulary that they're introducing about the ions and biomolecules, you really understand, because they actually talk about it through the entire course. Okay, I would encourage you to use this chapter for clinical correlations that are further elaborated in later chapters, including the fact that, like, for instance, some atoms and biomolecules have some electrical charges, aka ions, and partial charges or polar molecules. So just keep that in mind. What else did I want to talk about? That's pretty much it. I mean, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of these chapters within the lectures, but those are just some things I really wanted you to focus on. Again, please do not hesitate to use those thought questions as guides for studying, and then I will provide the answers to those thought questions just to make sure that you're on the right path. All right, thank you guys, and good luck with this course, and I will be seeing you next week.